This will be by far the largest effort ever made in Canada to deal with the issue of the stigma and discrimination faced by individuals living with a mental illness. And what you're looking at is Opening Minds, which is going to be the logo and the name for our anti-stigma initiative. Many people living with a mental illness report that stigma and the impact that it has on them is much worse to them than the impact of the illness itself. No Canadian should feel ashamed or experience discrimination because they're living with a mental illness today or have experienced one in the past. And yet, they very much do. The stigma surrounding a mental illness affects virtually everyone. And indeed, stigma remains one of the major barriers to people seeking help. I will tell you there's a very interesting statistic that a survey done a few years ago showed that 38% of Canadian parents, so 2 out of 5, said that if they had a child with a mental illness, they would not tell anyone, and as a result, that child would not get help. And contrary to popular misconception, recovery is possible if you take the word recovery to mean, as it does in, for example, diabetes or arthritis, being able to live a reasonably normal life within the limitations of your illness. And so, Opening Minds, by eliminating stigma and fear of discrimination, we believe we can improve not only the health outcomes for individuals living with a mental illness, but we can encourage a lot more of them to go for help. It's time for Canadians living with a mental illness to have real hope and real support and real solutions for treatment and recovery. Initially, Opening Minds is going to target 2 specific segments of the population. One is youth aged 12 to 18, and the second is healthcare professionals, but specifically the medical front lines of family doctors, nurses, and emergency rooms. What we're going to be doing is working with 20 youth and 15 healthcare programs in communities across Canada, programs which already exist and which we are going to help expand and evaluate, because what we intend to do is once we've evaluated the programs, once we know which ones are the best ones, we intend to roll out similar programs across the country. We've adopted this approach and adopted the approach that the best programs are programs which bring individuals in direct face-to-face contact with people who are living with a mental illness, that is the best way to begin to get rid of stigma and discrimination. We're focusing on youth because 70% of individuals with a mental illness as an adult had that illness begin before the age of 18. We're also focusing on children and youth because discrimination, stigma is the polite word, I prefer the word discrimination. Discrimination isn't something you're born with, it's something you're taught and you learn. And we know that attitudes can be changed much easier when you're a child or a youth than when you're an old person like myself. And so we're targeting children and youth in an attempt to begin to change the way future generations of Canadians think about mental health. And we're targeting healthcare professionals, particularly frontline workers, because, and I must say when the Senate committee started its work, this became a real surprise to me. The fact is that healthcare workers have very much the same attitudes towards individuals with a mental illness as the average Canadian does. And then what we're going to do over the next years is we will be adding different segments of the population. And so what we're really beginning today is the start of a public awareness campaign using a variety of media, using face-to-face contact, and targeting really changing public attitudes over the next 10 years. And we really believe that Opening Minds will offer every Canadian living with a mental illness real hope and raises the potential for increased treatment and for recovery. So today is not the end by any means. It's simply the beginning of the end of stigma and discrimination faced by individuals with a mental illness. And that's why we're delighted to be here with the Calgary flame showing on top of this tower, because we really believe that this is the start of a bright new day for all Canadians with a mental illness. Thank you.